Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 305. We're doing our Week 12 NFL picks against the spread. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you? And how was your Week 11?
I'm doing pretty good. My Week 11, not as good. I went, I think 5-9 is what ended up happening. A lot of just bad luck, but also just some games that did not go at all how I expected. 1 week after looking like they'd gotten back on track, the Patriots completely fell apart against the Texans and didn't even come close to winning that game, really. The Chiefs, for whatever reason, didn't show up to put the hammer down on the Raiders like we thought they were going to be. They actually almost lost that game. Made Derek Carr look pretty good. So we had that. And then Tom Brady and the Bucs again did not show up in primetime. So either that's a trend that's not going to be broken, or we're going to get tricked into doing this, or we're going to get tricked into doing the opposite, and then it will get broken next time. So yeah, just a few things that really brought down the whole game slate there. But I like this upcoming slate quite a bit. So I'm hoping that we can bounce back a little. And I'm still doing well on Thursday night. So in fact, we have 3 Thursday games this week. I hope bodes well for me.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, of course, we had 3 Thanksgiving games. Yeah, Week 11 was so rough, not just from what you mentioned, but also we had some bad luck too. Like the Bengals were my top play, and they were winning when Joe Burrow got injured. And it just sucks. It sucked to see him carted off the field. He was done for the year when it happened. And they had no chance after he left. Ryan Finley was terrible, and it seemed like the whole defense just quit. Because they only allowed 7 points to the Redskins up until that point. Only one good drive for Washington. And then after that, Washington scored on every possession. So it seemed like the Bengals just mailed it in because they knew they were done. And they're when your starting quarterback goes down, you're going to be deflated, especially if you're a bad team. And then the Chargers game was ridiculous. Yep. I was, the Chargers were up double digits most of the game. And I didn't even the backdoor cover wasn't even on my radar because I stopped paying attention to that game. I was looking at the other games, and suddenly I saw that Joe Flacco converted a 4th and 5, and he was getting close to covering. And I'm not joking. I was eating nerds, and here's proof. I have they're nerds right here. I had some nerds in my mouth, and when I saw him convert that 4th and 5, I was spit out the nerds in my mouth. I'm like he converted a 4th and 5, and there were nerds all over my my desk. So that was not pleasant. And the Jets had the backdoor cover. So it's just it's bad luck all around. I'm expecting it to bounce back. It has to variance goes one way, swings the other way eventually. So hopefully that's this week. We have 16 games to choose from. So hopefully we do better in the super contest. I think we both went 1-4 in our entries. Should have been 3-2 if the Bengals and Chargers games cashed, but what are you going to do? So before we begin, please hit subscribe if you're watching YouTube, or send this out to someone who likes football. It would really mean a lot to us. And we're closing in on 2,000 subscribers. We're kind of a new channel, so that's a cool milestone to get to. All right, the first game is Texans at the Lions. This line opened up Texans -2. It's up to 3 in most sports books. So who do you like in this game?
I love the Texans in this one. Anytime you get the opportunity to bet against a quarterback dealing with an injury that they're playing through, it's usually good to fade them. That's exactly what's going on with the Lions. Matthew Stafford has a thumb injury. He hurt it against Washington. He really hasn't been the same since he suffered that injury. We saw it against the Panthers. He wasn't able to move the ball downfield at all. Clearly that thumb was bothering him, and now he's playing on a short week. I don't think that he's going to be able to recover from that in time. And then it gets compounded by the fact that DeAndre Swift's in concussion protocol, and he might not end up, being available for 2 games against 2 of the worst run defenses in the NFL, which really annoys me because I have him in a lot of fantasy leagues. But, that's going to hurt the Lions a lot because now they're going to rely on Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson. And then Kenny Galladay's questionable with a hip injury too, and he might be back, but how much of an impact is that really going to have if Stafford can't get him the ball and do well? So all of those injuries just are really bad for the Lions offense. And these ones are pretty visible. I know we like to fade teams that have injured offensive linemen, but these are the top 3 skill position players on that offense. And 2 might be out, and 1, if he wasn't a quarterback, might not be playing this week. And then meanwhile, you look at the Texans offense, they're coming to life a bit, at least from a passing perspective. Deshaun Watson has what it takes to beat the Lions. I mean, Phillip Walker threw all over them last week, and if not for 2 disgusting goal line interceptions that he threw, that would have been like a true blowout instead of a 20-0 win. So I'm all over the Texans in this one. Their defense is going to have to contain Detroit a little bit. Their rushing attack specifically, because the Texans give up more yards to running backs than any team in the league, but I think they'll be able to do it. So I'm going to be on the Texans -3, somewhere between 2 and 4 units. I do want to see where the injury report ends up looking like, and if Kenny Galladay is going to play. If he does play, I may be on the lower end of unit counts, but I still think Houston's the right side here.
Yeah, Galladay didn't practice today, so it sounds like he's going to be out. DeAndre Swift, we don't know yet. I think Swift has a better chance of playing than Galladay, but I wouldn't be surprised if both missed this game. Also, the Lions are missing Trey Flowers, so they're down their best offensive playmaker. They're down. They might be down their best running back by far. They might be out without, they will be without their best defensive player. And then you have Matthew Stafford, who has an injured thumb. Like he's definitely not himself. Like if you watch him against the Panthers, like he clearly wasn't. Like 0 points against a bad Panther defense. It's not like he was playing like the Rams or something like that, where he's going against a dominant defense without Galladay. Like you can understand him not scoring at all in that sort of situation. But against the Panthers, who don't have Kawan Short, or Dante Jackson, their top corner, to score 0 points, that says a lot, I think. And the Lions at this rate, like given how their injuries have unfolded, even though they're 4-6, I think they're more like a 1-9 team right now, given the injuries they have. So if the Lions were 1-9 or something like that, the Texans will be favored by 6 or 6.5. And to get them at 3, it seems like a good value, even though this line has probably risen since it probably would have risen since the look ahead, but we didn't have a look ahead line because we didn't know about Stafford's condition a week ago. So even though it doesn't seem like we have good value, I think we do have good value on Houston. So I'm right there with you. I'm going to be on Houston pretty big.
Yeah, and the other thing with that value thing is think about what this line would be if Stafford wasn't playing, because that's kind of more what we're banking on. Not saying that Stafford's obviously going to play, but he's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be the Matthew Stafford we're used to. He's more between like a backup and a starter than he is like his full self. So I think Houston being favored by 3 over not backup quality player, but a player who can't execute at his normal rate is going to be huge. So I'm glad we're both on the same page to kick this thing off, because this is one of my most confident plays of the week. And hopefully it keeps my Thursday average up, because I believe I'm 8-3 in the year on Thursdays.
Nice. Good to hear. Yeah, I like all 3 of these Thursday games. It's a shame for the Super Contest that you can't submit early. I don't understand why they don't have that technology, but maybe one year they will. The next game is the Redskins at the Cowboys. This line opened up Cowboys -2. It's up to 3. So who do you like in this middle game?
Yeah, so I'm going to be on the Cowboys here. I have a feeling some people are going to want to be on Washington here because they're going to think, oh, both these teams won last week. It might be an overreaction to have Dallas favored by 3 points given what they had shown before last week. But Washington wasn't that impressive against the Bengals. You brought it up earlier. After Joe Burrow was hurt, the Bengals did absolutely nothing, and Washington kind of was just able to walk away with that one. They didn't even have to really run with it. They just gradually built a lead and hung on to it. But that game was weird because in the first half, the Bengals, they missed a ton of points. They had 2 missed field goals that both went off the right upright. Then they had a missed extra point, and they also had a failed fourth down conversion at the 1 yard line where Chase Young made a really nice play to hit Joe Burrow and jar the ball loose. It was also Troy Apke's the one who forced Burrow to run back inside. So Washington's defense made some nice plays, but the Bengals missed some opportunities there. They could have had 10 to 14 more points, and then we'd be talking about a 1-point game or a possible Bengals win. And then obviously Burrow getting hurt was horrible because you had Ryan Finley come into the game, and I'll give you some numbers on him later. They're not very pretty. But then you look at the Cowboys, and, they're a lot healthier than they were before. Andy Dalton's back, and he can at least manage that offense. Ben DiNucci and Garrett Gilbert had less of a chance. I mean, Garrett Gilbert was impressive. I'll give him that. But, Garrett Gilbert's not going to win you as many games as Andy Dalton, I don't think. So I think between getting healthier there, Dalton playing well, and, Washington has some good defensive numbers, but they can be beat on defense, and Dallas has the talent to do it. And they're going to want revenge. They're at home on Thanksgiving too. They don't want to get swept by this team, and a win keeps them in the NFC East race, which is where Dallas expected to be this year. Meanwhile, Washington's kind of, they didn't expect to be in this division at all. And in a normal year, they wouldn't be. I think they might end up riding a little high off of their first win in a while. And while I think the coaching's better in Washington, I think Dallas wins this because of the motivational factor. So I'll be on the Cowboys here. I don't know how many units yet. I'm going to wait. I have one written down right now, but I could go for more depending on what the injury report looks like.
Yeah, so I'm not a big Mike McCarthy fan, but I like what he did during the bye. Like they shuffled around the offensive linemen. They put Zach Martin at tackle, and I think that helped a lot against the Vikings. Now, granted, Minnesota doesn't have a good pass rush because they have some absences on the defensive line, and the Redskins are going to be a tougher challenge. But the last time they played the Redskins, they didn't have Zach Martin, so it's going to be a lot different. They also didn't have a complete linebacking core in that Week 7 game. They also didn't have Chidobe Awuzie, their top cornerback, and Andy Dalton got hurt halfway through the game, even though it was kind of a blowout by then. But still, like Dallas is going to be a lot better than they were the last time they played Washington. And so I think that's going to be, I think that's like a nice bonus for the Cowboys here. I think the Cowboys are going to be a lot better going forward. People will kind of remember some of their ugly games where they were missing so many players, but now they're mostly healthy. Like outside of Prescott and their two cornerbacks or two offensive tackles, and also Trevon Diggs. They're mostly healthy, so like they're going to be a lot better. So I wasn't surprised at all they beat Minnesota. I just think it's going to be a sign of things to come. So I like Dallas. Also, some news broke today. Unfortunately, Marcus Paul, the strength and conditioning coach of the Cowboys, he passed away. And so I think Dallas. There's a good chance that Dallas is going to play harder for Paul in his memory. So they might dedicate this game to him. So that's an extra motivating factor for Dallas.
Yeah, that news about Marcus Paul was definitely tough. I'm not sure he passed away, though. I thought that there had been confirmed that he actually hadn't. He's on life support right now.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, just some clarity there. So hopefully he is okay. I'll have to double check all that, but they'll still obviously be motivated to play hard for him. I just think, like you said, there's so much motivation on this side. I think the Cowboys, like you said, are better than people think they are. So I'll take them over Washington, who's, is a team on the rise, but I don't know if they have the personnel to exploit the holes on this Dallas defense. Like they're still not quite as strong on the back end as you'd like. But if Awuzie is back and he can at least guard Terry McLaurin well enough to limit him, then who else is going to step up for Washington? That's the big question. So I think Dallas is the right side.
That's true. I guess I read a misleading news report that said he had passed away. But yeah, if he's on life support, it's kind of like the same thing where they might play hard for him. So I was asked about Carlos asked the last Cowboys 3 Thanksgivings. They lost to the Bills 26-15 last year. In 2018, they beat the Redskins 31-23. And then in 2017, it was they played the Chargers and they lost 28-6. Obviously, like this team is worse than the other ones, but they're also playing a team that's a lot worse too. So, I like Dallas. So it's nice that we're 2 for 2 in agreement so far. Although that didn't really work out last week, but hopefully it will this time. And there was, like I said, there was some bad luck, so I'm not unhappy about that. I'm glad we're agreeing. The third game, the nightcap, Ravens at the Steelers. This line opened up Steelers -4.5. It's up to 5. So who do you like here?
So I really want to be on the Ravens here because you'd think the motivational edge would suit them, and this is kind of a must-win game for them. But I'm on the Steelers here. Simply put, the Ravens are so injured right now. They're going to be without 2 of their top 3 running backs. They're going to be down to 2 at that position for this game against a tough run defense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're down 2 of their better run defenders on the defensive line, Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell. We don't know if they're going to play. They were both, I believe, doubtful last week and downgraded to out. So I don't have faith that they're going to be able to slow down the run there. So we'll see what happens. But even if the Ravens are without all these people, or even if, with them without all these people, I don't think they're going to do well enough against this Pittsburgh team that's going to be spelling blood in the water. They're going to see hey, this Baltimore team's on the ropes. Like, if we beat them here, not only do we basically wrap up the division, they'd be 11-0, and the Browns would have to be able to catch them, which I don't think would happen in the last 5 games of the season. They'd also put Baltimore in a tough spot in terms of the jockeying for playoff position. So the Steelers will have motivation for this game. And I know we were worried about their motivation against the Jaguars last week, but that turned out to be completely not the case. They showed up. They won 27-3. They may have been a little slow out of the gate, but they showed up. And I think they'll show up against Baltimore. And Lamar Jackson has not been good against Baltimore or against Pittsburgh in his career. So I think he turned the ball over 4 times against them earlier in the year. So I think Pittsburgh's going to win this one. I don't know if I'm going to bet handily on it, but because I do think that this could be close if the Ravens show up, but the injuries are just too much for me to side with them.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson's been off ever since they lost Ronnie Stanley. Like it's just been completely different, and he wasn't even that great this year beforehand because like he clearly missed Marshall Yanda. So like the Ravens have had a great offensive line before the season, and now it's pretty bad. So ever since then, so he lost. They lost Stanley midway through the Pittsburgh game, so they lost to the Steelers. They beat the Colts, but Darius Leonard got hurt in that game. And the Colts were winning up until that point, and then the Ravens eventually won. And then the Ravens lost to the Patriots, who in between that they almost lost to the Jets and they lost to Houston. So it's like how good was that looked at the time. It's like the Patriots, they look good against the Ravens, but then you kind of have to consider their other results. And then they lost to Tennessee in overtime last week, where Jackson just didn't play well. Jackson just not playing well at all, and I don't know how he's going to play against the Steelers, who, like you said, they're going to have they're going to be looking to sweep the Ravens. Like they absolutely hate them. Brandon Williams is out. He was ruled out a couple hours ago. He's on the COVID list. So Calais Campbell is like their only hope to come back. And if he's not going to play either, it's just such a mismatch in the trenches where Pittsburgh should be able to win that easily. So as long as Campbell's out, how do you not take the Steelers here? Like you have to. If Campbell plays, I'm less enthusiastic about this game. Considering how closely these teams always seem to play. But I just think that Jackson is just, not clearly himself. And the Ravens have so many injuries. I just don't know how they contend with the Steelers if they're still missing Campbell in addition to Williams.
And you mentioned the COVID list. That's another big thing at play here is the Ravens haven't been able to be in their facility this week. Which, in recent weeks hasn't mattered a ton for NFL teams, but where this is a short week, I could see it having an impact on them, especially in such a tough matchup. I totally agree with you. If Calais Campbell's back, I'm probably not going to want to bet this game, and I might not end up doing it, but Pittsburgh just seems like the right side here either way.
Yeah, I agree. So, all right, we're 3 for 3 in agreements. Let's head to Sunday, the first of the Sunday afternoon games, the Raiders at the Falcons. This line was a pick 'em, and now the Raiders are favored by 3. Everyone's clearly impressed by what they saw from Derek Carr, who looked like the next Joe Montana against the Chiefs. So, does Derek Carr continue to play this well, and do the Raiders win easily against the Falcons?
I actually have a yes to both of those things. I don't think they'll win easily, but I think they'll cover here. Carr has been very good this year. He's just been steady and he's avoided turnovers. He has 19 touchdown passes on the year and just 3 interceptions. And even that line is misleading because one of his interceptions came against the Chiefs in that game we watched where he had 28 seconds to drive the length of the field, basically. So he just threw one up. They got picked by Daniel Sorensen. But the reason that I'm taking the Raiders in this one, it's pretty much one thing. The Falcons might be without Julio Jones in this one. Julio Jones hurt his hamstring against the Saints. And the Falcons without Julio Jones on offense are just a completely different team. They couldn't do anything to move the ball on the Saints with him out of the game. And I know the Raiders defense is much weaker than that of the Saints, but if they just have to focus on getting some pressure on Matt Ryan and taking away Calvin Ridley, then I think we can at least talk about, the Raiders doing a good job of limiting the Falcons offense. And Matt Ryan just hasn't looked comfortable this year without Julio Jones. So I think he could very much struggle in this game. And meanwhile, the Raiders offense has been just very good and very consistent. So I'll take them to do well against an Atlanta defense that has been better in recent weeks. I will give them that as well. But, it still has some holes in the secondary and cornerback position. And if Josh Jacobs can get going, I can just see the Raiders not running away with this game, but keeping the Falcons kind of at an arm's length for most of it. So I'm going to be on the Raiders here. I'm probably going to be on them for like 2 units or so. I just think that they're the better team here. And I know the Falcons have some good personnel, but if Julio Jones is out, I just cannot trust them at all.
Yeah, I mean, Julio Jones, that news is huge. I mean, the Falcons would be 4-1 right now if it wasn't for that Todd Gurley nonsense against the Lions. They'd be 4-1 right now in games in which Julio Jones played the full game. Without him, they're a lot worse. Like, we know that. And so it really depends on his status for this game. If he plays, I like Atlanta because the look-ahead line was a pick'em, and now they're going to be +3. And, I think the Raiders might be a little flat after such an emotional loss to the Chiefs, especially like late Sunday night. It's going to be tough for them to rebound from that. I really think so. And Atlanta's gotten better, not just from Julio Jones. They were missing several cornerbacks earlier in the year, and they're all fully healthy now. So their secondary is not great, but it's not as bad as people think it is. So I think the Falcons are. I think they're very underrated if Julio Jones plays. Now, if Julio Jones is out, I think you probably have the right side. I just don't want to bet this game because, like I said, I think the Raiders might be flat. And also with this line, I think that the most likely result of this game is the Raiders winning by 3. But after that, it might be Atlanta winning by 3. So this line it's just not too inviting. Like if it was Raiders -2.5. I think I would agree with you. If Julio Jones is out, I'd probably bet the Raiders at that point. But at 3, I have no interest there. So this is either going to be if Julio Jones plays, I'm going to bet on Atlanta. And if Julio Jones is out, I'm probably going to be on the Raiders, but for no units.
Yeah, you make a good point about the emotional aspect of the Raiders loss. I hadn't considered that. My thought process was because of how tight it's going to be in the AFC for the playoff races, that they'll be motivated and then they'll see this as an opportunity to kickstart a winning streak. Because I think they play the Falcons and then they play the Jets after that. Don't quote me on that exact order, but they have some winnable games coming up. So I think that Gruden might say like, hey, we almost beat this. We can absolutely handle these Falcons. We just got to get it, bring the same type of intensity. But I will be interested to see which of those theories works out because there is definitely a world in which the Raiders are just like completely flat out of the gate. But I'm going to bet on Gruden right now. I feel good about the team, much better than I did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. Gruden's done a great job, and I think it was Andrew who said Greg Olson should be a head coach somewhere if he wants to be a head coach. I don't know if he wants to be. Yeah, he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL, no doubt. And the Raiders do play the Jets next week, and then they play the Colts. So yeah, so definitely some winnable games for sure if they're focused and Julio's out. Next game, Cardinals at the Patriots. This line opened up Cardinals -1. It's up to 2.5. So who do you like in this game?
All right, so you fool me once, that's shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. But no one fools me 3 times, so I'm going to be on the Cardinals here. The Patriots have been a roller coaster these last few weeks, and it's really seeming like that win over Baltimore. I don't want to call it a fluke because they had a really good game plan. I just don't think that the Patriots team is good enough or talented enough to win consistently week in and week out, especially against good competition. And I think Arizona qualifies. The only concern I have with this game is the health of Kyler Murray. We saw him get hurt on Thursday Night Football. He hurt his shoulder. I think it was his AC joint that ended up bothering him. But throughout that game against the Seahawks, they were heating his shoulder in between offensive possessions. They were kind of massaging it. And that's one of the reasons that the Cardinals weren't able to keep it closer with the Seahawks or ultimately come back to win is because Kyler Murray just wasn't himself. He didn't have the same zip on his passes. So I felt bad for him in that moment because it must have been tough playing through that. But I think with the little bit of a mini bye to heal up, he should be okay. And I think that the Patriots are going to have trouble with him as a quarterback because he can move around a lot and has great escapability. They had issues with that last week with Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of people will point to Lamar Jackson and say, hey, they didn't have trouble with him. But the difference is Lamar Jackson doesn't have nearly as many weapons as Deshaun Watson or Kyler Murray has. Between Dustin Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald. There are just so many weapons for Murray to take advantage of against a defense that hasn't lived up to expectations. So I don't know if I'm going to bet the Cardinals heavily in this one. I might put a unit on it, maybe two, depending on how many people the Patriots list is questionable, which will probably be north of 15, given what they've done this year. But I think the Cardinals are the right side. I don't think the Patriots can compete with them, but the Patriots are so wildly inconsistent that I don't blame anyone who doesn't want to bet on this game.
Well, count me in part of that group. Out of all the games on the slate this week, this is my least confident game. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. Like, even if I were to like flip a coin to like determine the winner, like I wouldn't even trust the coin flip. Like that's how like unconfident I am about this game, because like I can make arguments for both teams. Like on one hand, for the Cardinals, the Patriots secondary and also mostly their pass rush has just been terrible. Like they're not getting any pressure on the quarterback at all. Deshaun Watson had all day to throw, even though he's missing Laramie Tunsil. So how are the Patriots going to get to Kyler Murray? And even if they do, he can just run around. The Patriots linebackers can't cover. Their secondary is struggling. Like Stephon Gilmore is definitely not the same player. He's injured. So he's not going to be able to cover Hopkins. So it feels like Arizona should be able to score at will here. And the Patriots, they almost lost to Joe Flacco, and then they lost to Houston without Tunsil. So it's like, how did they do this? And like the one win they have really is recently is against Baltimore, and we know Baltimore's not that good. So like that one was a little misleading. But on the other hand, the spread moved 2.5 points. It was a pick 'em on the advanced line. I do think that, there might be some weather conditions, and Kyler Murray's shoulder might be a problem. So and also heading before the Houston game, the Patriots are 4-2 in games in which Newton was fully healthy. So like that's kind of why I really liked the Patriots last week. So I don't want to change my opinion completely based on one result. I feel like it feels like I'm walking into a trap. Like someone called this a trap game in the comments. I think this could definitely be a trap game. And I could see like right now, there's not a lot of public action in Arizona. Actually, it's growing right now. It's like up to 67%. I see the public coming in at like 70+% in Arizona and just getting killed like they did last week. And like the Patriots just like winning randomly. So yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on this game. I feel like anything could happen. So I don't know. I'll just defer to you on this one.
Yeah. Okay. You've convinced me not to bet on this game because I didn't like it that much either. I was just putting one unit on the Cardinals because I was like, hey, they maybe should be favored by more than 3. But every Patriots game since like week 6 has been like a trap game, in my opinion. Like there's just no way to tell which of these two teams are going to show up. I think we're seeing the struggle between coaching and talent at this point. Like Belichick's a great coach, and he can outcoach a lot of different teams, and he can find ways to win. But at a certain point, talent does matter in the NFL, and the Patriots just don't have enough of it right now, or don't have enough of it healthy. So be interested to see what happens. Be watching the injury report for Kyler. But yeah, I'm tentatively on Arizona, but I'm probably not going to bet this because I don't like betting against the Patriots anyway. I'm from New England, so why would I do that?
It's good. It's a good stance to have. I used to have a friend who always would bet against the Philly teams because his reasoning was, if the Philly team wins, he'll be happy, and if they don't, he'll win money. So it's kind of like he loved hedging that way. So
win-lose proposition sounds so good in theory, though, but then your team loses and you're devastated and you're like, oh, I guess I got money. But then when your team wins and you're like, oh yeah, they won, you're like, oh shoot, I lost money. It's the worst feeling. Like just I can't do the win-lose thing. It bugs me too much.
I agree. I could see where he was coming from. It's nice to hedge, but like you're never going to be fully happy. So yep. I just don't agree with that stance. All right. Next game, Giants at the Bengals. The sign opened up. It was Bengals -2.5 before we knew that Burrow was not going to be playing, and now the line is up to 5.5 for the Giants. So who do you like here? And also, I'm eager to hear your Ryan Finley stats.
Okay, yeah. So I'm all over the Giants here. I have them written down for 3 to 4 units. Ryan Finley, I don't think he has a prayer in this game. So the Bengals are just doomed with him. Ryan Finley has made 3 career starts. In those starts, he's completed 47% of his passes. He's averaged 158 passing yards. He has just 2 touchdowns compared to 5 turnovers, and he's been sacked 11 times. And then in relief of Burrow against Washington, he went 3 of 10. He had an interception. He led 0 scoring drives, and he was sacked 4 times in less than a half of play. Like, the dude just does not look like a professional quarterback. And I'll say this, I liked him in the 2019 draft. I thought, like, of those mid-round options, yeah, he has some upside. He could maybe be a game manager backup type. He has not shown anything to date to let me believe that at this point. Had he come out and looked good against Washington, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But he's playing behind such a bad offensive line, and I do not think he has the arm talent needed to connect with any of these weapons that Cincinnati has on a consistent basis. And then throw in the fact that Joe Mixon is out, and this offense looks like one of the worst in the NFL. As much as I love Giovanni Bernard and think he's a great backup, he's not as good between the tackles as he was early in his career. So with all that said, the Giants just have to make sure they show up on offense and don't make as many mistakes as they have in the previous games they've had this season. And there's a little bit of concern. Daniel Jones is prone to turnovers, but the Giants are coming off of a bye, and before the bye, they really started to get on track, and at least, you know, they seemed to understand what they were doing as an offense. They're starting to gain an identity on that side of the ball, and their defense has been solid for the better part of the last 4 or 5 games. So I think that they're going to limit Cincinnati. They're going to score very little. And, you know, if Joe Judge and everyone on the coaching staff for the Giants has the offense figured out, I think this could end up being a blowout. So I'm all over the Giants here. I think this line is too low, and I think people are not going to like what they see out of Ryan Finley, barring a massive surprise.
Yeah, I think you're a little too harsh on Ryan Finley because remember, he had a 19-yard scramble. So,
yeah, you're right.
Let's keep playing that game. It was a third and 18 too. And I was like, when that happened, I'm like, wait, do they have a chance? And then no, he just got sacked. It was miserable to watch. I like you. I thought Finley would be better in the NFL, not as starter or anything, but I thought he could at least be a decent backup in the NFL. Like I thought he would be. Kind of like a worse version of Alex Smith because, you know, he doesn't have a good arm, but I thought that coming into the NFL, like he looked like he was smart and he could be accurate, but you know, the accuracy numbers that you just gave us say otherwise. Like he's not even 50% completion. And so I really don't have any faith in the Bengals here. I'm right there with you on the Giants. I just think that the Giants are playing better. They played better before the bye, and they've had a week off to kind of figure things out. I don't know if that's going to really benefit them or not. Like we'll see. But you know, I guess if you have any faith in Joe Judge, it is a positive. Also, I don't know. I guess the Bengals might just give up. There's a story that came out today talking about some dissension in the locker room with the Bengals, and so it kind of like, you know, when I saw that, I'm like. Kind of made sense that they gave up when Burrow got hurt because when Burrow was playing, they had something to play for because like obviously they weren't going to make the playoffs this year, but they could build for 2021 and like in 2021 I think they'd have a good chance at making the playoffs with a healthy Burrow, but now they really don't have anything to play for. In fact, it's better off that they lose games so they can get Penei Sewell at number 3 overall. So I just think that this team is just done, and I think the Giants have much more to play for. At least I hope so, because I had that 18-1 prop on them to win the division.
Yeah, I mean, given their upcoming schedule, that doesn't look half bad. I mean, whatever team wins the Giants versus Washington game is going to be in first place, at least momentarily, in the NFC East. You know, unless they tie, then it's a 3-way tie, which would be ridiculous, but possible. But yeah, no, I think the Giants, they could well make a run at that division title at this point.
Would you take the Bengals to lose out at plus 350 as Barron's just asked us? I'm gonna read you the schedule in a second. So after this Giants game, they play at Miami, at home against Dallas, at home against Pittsburgh, at Houston, and then at home against Baltimore.
Ooh, I think I would. I think the problem is we don't know if Ryan Finley is going to be the quarterback for that whole stretch. If I knew Ryan Finley was, I would bet that at plus 350. I don't mind that. I wouldn't mind taking that. I think especially if there's locker room dissension, then maybe it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. So plus 350, not bad.
Yeah, I think I would too. It's not. I don't think it's a slam dunk because at home against Dallas, like if the Cowboys suffer some more injuries, like if Dalton goes down, like suddenly you're banking on Garrett Gilbert to win a game. Like it kind of sucks. And also like week 16 against Houston, like Houston may not have anything to play for, and you never know. Like maybe Deshaun Watson goes down, and if Watson goes down, like that team is the worst team in the NFL probably. So. I think I would, but I'm not, like I said, not crazy about it. Is the Clapper on the hot seat? I don't think they fire him after 1 year, right? Like it feels like a 2-year thing at least. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like if the Giants lose out and Daniel Jones sucks, then maybe. But Daniel Jones has gotten better recently, right?
Yeah, I think it all depends on if the interest of the Giants. We know they were the ones that wanted to hire Garrett. It depends on if Joe Judge goes to them and says, listen, this isn't working out on offense. I need a new coordinator. I know you guys love Garrett, but it didn't work out. I don't see that happening personally. I think, like you said, I think it's probably a 2-year arrangement. And then at that point, if Judge is like, this is not going well, they'll make the switch. But I will be interested to watch what that team does with their coaching staff after the season. I think Judge is going to be around no matter what. But, if they don't see developments after the bye, they could make some changes.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. All right, so we talked about one crappy quarterback with accuracy issues at home. It's time for the other one. Browns at the Jaguars. This line opened up Browns minus 6.5. It's down to 6. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I don't want to bet this game, but I'm going to be on the Browns here. If the Browns weren't going to be without their 2 best defensive players, I probably would have a much different opinion of this game. But Myles Garrett's going to stay on the COVID list, and Denzel Ward's dealing with a calf injury. So those 2 things make it hard to predict how this defense is going to play against Jake Luton. Luton had 4 interceptions last week against the Steelers, but obviously the Browns defense is not nearly as good as the Steelers defense. So I don't know if I want to trust that stop unit to contain Jake Luton, because he did get a garbage time cover against the Texans and then played well enough against the Packers early to get a cover before, falling apart late. So it's just too hard to trust the Jaguars at this point, but I don't trust the Browns either. And I think, if they were fully healthy, yeah, I'd be all over the Browns, but I could see them just kind of overlooking Jacksonville and being like, hey, we're 6-3. This team's terrible. And then not paying enough attention on defense. So I'm tentatively on the Browns, but I wouldn't bet this game. There's too many variables to bet on a bad defense or a bad quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's too early in the week to say, confidently like where I'm going to go with this. You bring up the Denzel Ward injury plus Myles Garrett. So without Ward, they're also missing Greedy Williams. So they're down their top 2 cornerbacks. And I guess the strength of the Jaguars is the receiving core, like especially if Laviska Shenault comes back, they're going to have Shenault plus DJ Chark plus Keelan Cole and Chris Conley, who when he's not dropping passes, he's okay as a 4th receiver. So the Jaguars have some talent at receiver, and they could take advantage of that with the Browns missing cornerbacks. If Gardner Minshew were playing in this game, like if he were healthy, I would be all over the Jaguars to win this. But it's so hard to trust Jake Luton. Like I don't want to do it. But on the other hand, the Browns are going against the Jaguar team that's going to be missing some players. Like CJ Henderson is injured. Sidney Jones didn't play last week. He has an Achilles injury. I don't know if he's going to come back this week. But if he's out, suddenly the Jaguars are down their top 2 cornerbacks. And it doesn't sound like Josh Allen is going to play either because he got hurt last week. So the Jaguars are missing tons of players too. So if the Jaguars are missing Jones on top of Henderson and also Josh Allen, I'm going to be on the Browns and probably hope for a no backdoor cover like we saw against Houston. But if the Jaguars are relatively healthy defensively, I think I probably will be on Jacksonville. But either way, I don't think I'm going to bet this game.
Yeah, it just seems too risky to bet. And I think the Jaguars put a few dudes on injured reserve earlier. I think Josh Allen and DJ Hayden were 2 of them. Can't remember off the top of my head, but I know they put 3 guys on IR, and I think they might have put their kicker on the COVID list, which if you've been following the Jacksonville kicker situation like I have, it's gotten ridiculous. So there are a lot of questions with Jacksonville. There are just too many questions with both of these teams unless the injury report reveals something that neither of us is expecting, or that the Jaguars are going to be missing their entire defense or something like that. So I think we're definitely in agreement on this one.
Yeah, these are two teams I wanted to bet against this week, and it just sucks that they're playing against each other. It's kind of like last week where Tennessee and Baltimore were playing against each other, and I wanted to bet against both, but you couldn't. And then on the other hand, the Packers and Colts are playing against each other, and I wanted to bet on both teams because they were suddenly healthier. It's just like, it just didn't match up pretty well. It sucks, but what are you going to do? Next game, there is no line on this game. Panthers at the Vikings. We don't know who's going to play quarterback for the Panthers yet. It could be Teddy Bridgewater, who was close last week. If not, it's going to be Philip Walker again, who had a great first start after being, I guess, quote unquote, the MVP of the XFL. There was no official award, but he was going to be the MVP. So, who do you like in this game? Or I guess, like, what do you think the line's going to be to?
I think we should just call PJ Walker the XFL MVP, because every time it's mentioned on the broadcast, everyone's like, yeah, he played in the XFL and probably would have been the MVP, but the season was canceled. And it's like, yeah, no, we all know he would have been the MVP. So I think we can all just acknowledge that. I'm going to probably be on the Panthers in this one either way. I liked what I saw out of Walker. I mentioned that he had 2 terrible goal line interceptions earlier, but, that's the type of stuff you'd expect from someone making their first start. They're going to make mistakes. If he can learn from them, if he has to start, that'd be good. And I think he could against this Minnesota defense that has, been weak to receivers this year and just doesn't have a ton of cornerback talent yet. And if Teddy Bridgewater comes back, I think he can beat this Vikings team too, because again, the weakness of that Vikings defense, well, they don't have a pass rush anymore. But their corners are all very young and developing, and the Panthers have 3 really, really good receivers. So as long as their quarterback can get them the ball, I think they'll move the ball on offense. And then defensively, the Panthers don't have much on defense, but the Vikings offense, Adam Thielen is on the COVID list right now, so we don't know if he's going to play. Even if he's back, I could see them going blow for blow offensively if Kirk Cousins has a good game. So I think that the Vikings are probably going to be favored in this one after losing to Dallas. I don't know if it's going to be a lot. I think probably if Teddy Bridgewater is healthy, I think we might see a 1 to 2 point line on the Vikings. And then if he's not healthy, I think it might be a 4-point line. I may be way off on this because I'm not very good at predicting lines. So I will defer to your knowledge on that one.
I think this line will be, if Bridgewater plays, I think it'll be probably 3.5. If Bridgewater's out, it might be around 6 or 6.5, something like that. So if Bridgewater plays and he's healthy, I definitely like the Panthers because the Vikings, like you said, they have so many injuries. They have injuries at corner. Their top 2 pass rushers are out, and Anthony Barr also. So they have five or 6 starters on defense, depending on snap counts. So it just seems like the Panthers have such a big advantage at receiver against the Minnesota cornerbacks. So I think that's just too big of an advantage for the Panthers if Bridgewater's healthy. Now, if Bridgewater's injured and, if he's limited on the practice report and then he plays, I'm not going to be enthusiastic about it. I might actually go with Minnesota at that point because I don't like to bet injured quarterbacks. If it's Phil Walker, it really depends on what the line is. At 6 or more, I think I would be on Carolina, but if it's less than 6, I might be in Minnesota. My biggest concern is I love Walker. I think he has great talent. He's physically gifted. He's just not quite there yet. He just doesn't have enough reps yet in the NFL. My concern with him is going against Mike Zimmer, who's just a great defensive minded coach. And I think that could trip him up a little bit. Zimmer, despite the backups he's playing, could throw some things that Walker hasn't seen. And instead of 2 red zone interceptions, maybe he throws 3 interceptions at midfield that give the Vikings a short field. So that would be my concern with Walker. But it really depends on what the line is.
Yeah, I think that's fair concern. Mike Zimmer is a very good coach. The fact that he had the Vikings on a mini winning streak before they played Dallas is just a testament to his ability to develop talent on the fly and get by without starters on defense. So I think he's done a very good job this year, and I definitely like PJ Walker too. But I think this is going to be a fascinating one to watch. I have an inkling that Teddy Bridgewater will be back. That's based on nothing other than the fact that he was almost active last week as an emergency option, but then they elected not to put him in. But at the same time, the Panthers are also on bye in week 13. So if they feel like Teddy's not 100%, they get an extra 2 weeks to rest him. So this really could go either way. So we'll be watching Teddy Bridgewater very closely this week.
Yeah, it's a good point about the bye week coming up. It's not like the Panthers are in the playoff race or anything. Like, they're 4-7. Why risk his injury? So it could be Walker for another week. I think I'm leaning toward Walker, and that is based on nothing as well. So the next game, Titans at the Colts. The sign opened up Colts -4, down to 3.5. These teams just played 2 weeks ago on Thursday night, and the Colts won that one easily. So who do you like in this grudge match?
I like the Colts again. We saw them kind of figure out how to stop the Titans in that game. I believe they held them scoreless after halftime. They were trailing going into the half, and then it turned into a big win for them. I think with Michael Pittman Jr. playing much better and looking like a potential number one receiver for them, that changes the outlook of the Colts offense. Phillip Rivers doesn't have to just rely on running backs and tight ends, even though he likes doing that. He actually has some weapons on the outside that'll help elevate that offense. The running game, we saw Nyheim Hines play well against the Colts. We saw Jonathan Taylor play well against the Packers. So, they're going to mix it up there, but they have the weapons needed to move the ball on offense. And Tennessee's defense hasn't been very good this year. They allow a lot of rushing yards, and they've been bad against the pass as well. I know they've been without Adoree Jackson. He could be back. We're not sure, though. He's kind of been questionable every week. He's turning into this podcast's 2020 version of Cordy Glenn with the number of times he's been mentioned. So if he comes back, maybe that changes things a little, but I don't think it changes things a ton. And really the bigger part of this is the Colts are healthy on defense. They're extremely good against the run. They completely bottled up Derrick Henry the last time these two teams played. And in the second half of that game, they just got pressure on Ryan Tannehill and kind of contained his receiving attack, didn't give him a lot of opportunities to throw downfield to open receivers, kind of made him dink and dunk, and then they would make some big plays. So I think nothing's changed. So why would I not be on the Colts here when they won by, I think 18 points last time they played or something along those lines? So I'll be on the Colts for a couple units here. You could convince me to go more depending on their injury report. I think that they're mostly healthy, though, especially on defense. That's huge for them. When they're healthy on defense, they can compete with anyone.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about Leonard going, he didn't leave the game except for a couple plays. But, he was injured playing hurt against the Ravens, and that's why they lost the lead against the Ravens in that game. So, yeah, he's healthy now. I think the injury report for Tennessee is the big factor because you have not only Adoree Jackson, but you have Kenny Vaccaro, you have Christian Fulton, and you also have Roger Saffold, who missed last week's game, and Ben Jones, I believe, got hurt during the game. So the Tennessee has a lot of injury question marks. If they're down 3 offensive linemen against the Colts front, they're going to have no chance to win this game. So I'm curious to see what the injury report looks like for them offensively. Defensively, they have no pass rush. Jadeveon Clowney's out. And even with him on the field, they couldn't get to the quarterbacks. Now they don't have any pass rusher at all. So Phillip Rivers, when he has time in the pocket, he can just carve up defenses. And, he did that against Tennessee 2 weeks ago. He did that against the Packers in the second half, and he's going to do that this week against Tennessee. And you also have to wonder where the spread would be if Tennessee didn't beat Baltimore. And I say that because, I think people are looking at the Tennessee win over Baltimore and they're impressed. They're like, wow, the Titans beat the Ravens in Baltimore. Wow, they must be so good. But Baltimore is not that good right now. So how impressive is that win? We just saw the Patriots beat the Ravens. Everyone was impressed with the Patriots, and the Patriots lost to the Texans the week after. So I think there's kind of this lingering effect here where every team that beats Baltimore is suddenly elevated when they shouldn't be because Baltimore is not that good. So I think if the Titans lost to the Ravens, or if they didn't even play the Ravens, let's just say they had a bye, this line would be, I think, above 4, probably 5, maybe 6. So we're getting a number that should be a lot higher here. And so I like the Colts a lot.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. This value is great. And realistically, the Titans almost weren't able to beat the Ravens. So that was a close game. And I think we all, or you and me at least, think the Colts are better than the Ravens at this point, even though they lost to them because of the Darius Leonard factor. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this one because if the Colts win this against the Titans, then they sweep the series and have the tiebreaker in the AFC South. I actually have money on both of these teams to win the Super Bowl, but I still want the Colts to win so that they have an easier path because I think my number on them was better.
Yeah, I think I'm 28-1 on the Colts or something like that, or something. I forget what it is, but yeah, I definitely have the Colts. So I'm going to be rooting for them. Next game, Chargers at the Bills. The line went up Bills -6. It's down to 5.5. So who do you like here?
So I like the Bills here a little bit. They're coming off a bye, so that's pretty big. They'll have had time to make some adjustments and get healthier. I know Josh Norman, I think, was activated either from IR or the COVID list. So I know he hasn't been perfect this year, but he's still a strong cornerback to add depth to that defensive backfield. And I think the Bills defense just matches up pretty well with this Chargers offense. Like Justin Herbert's been incredible this year. He should win Rookie of the Year hands down, provided that he stays healthy the rest of the way and, doesn't suddenly implode or anything crazy like that. But Tre'Davious White's available to help cover Keenan Allen and make his life difficult. And Herbert likes to spread the ball around, but Sean McDermott's a good defensive-minded coach, so he's going to find a way to slow down Herbert or force him into some mistakes. And then on the offensive side of the ball, the Chargers defense just has not been good this year. And Josh Allen was back to playing at a potentially MVP level before his bye. So I think that he's going to play very well in this matchup. He should have all of his weapons at his disposal, except maybe John Brown. John Brown is dealing with an ankle injury. We don't know if he's going to play, but even if he doesn't, Gabriel Davis has looked great in his place this year. So I think they'll move the ball that way. We'll see if they can do anything on the ground. They've stopped using Devin Singletary for some reason. And Zach Moss is getting all the carries, even though he's just kind of plodding forward for 2 yards at a time. But maybe they have some master plan to improve the run game coming out of the bye. But that'll be the one big thing to watch. But I think the Bills have the advantage on both sides of the ball. I think they have the coaching advantage because Anthony Lynn is just snake bitten in one possession games. It's like unbelievable how unlucky he is. And even when they are about to win by 10 points, they somehow allow the Jets to cover. So I'll be on the Bills here.
Yeah, me too. I'm on the Bills as well. And this kind of reminds me of the week 10 game where the Bills played at Miami. Or not the Bills. The Chargers played at Miami. And Justin Herbert really struggled in that game because he was going against a great defense with a great defensive-minded coach in Brian Flores. And this is kind of like the same thing where the Bills have a great defense and you have Sean McDermott who's going to be able to prepare for Herbert and not just prepare, but he's had a full week off to get ready for this game. So I think that's a big advantage for Buffalo. And I think Herbert could really struggle like he did against the Dolphins. And Josh Allen, he had some struggles, in October, but he was dealing with a shoulder injury and now he's healthy again. So I think, if Allen never got hurt and the Bills won some of those games that they lost, and they had a better record, obviously, then the spread would be higher. And so I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for the Chargers. People want to bet on Justin Herbert, but you can't really bet on a rookie quarterback in these sort of situations. And it's kind of like what we talked about with Philip Walker against Mike Zimmer. Like this is even worse because the Bills actually have their defensive starters. So I think this could be a blowout. Like I think it could get ugly. Maybe Herbert keeps it closer in the fourth quarter, like he throws a garbage touchdown or something. But Miami beat the Chargers pretty soundly, and I think the Bills will do the same. So while you were talking, I looked up. I was curious about how teams have done after playing the Ravens this year, and they're 3-6 against the spread. I don't know if that means anything, but I think it goes along with saying teams that just play Baltimore are a little overrated because the Ravens aren't that good.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. As you said, that's kind of a mind-blowing stat that they're 3-6 this year, and we might make it 3-7 if things go well. I think there was a question about Eckler there. If Eckler's back, I don't think it really impacts this game that much because Kalen Ballage has been good, and more importantly than anything else, the Chargers have had no problem finding guys to catch passes out of the backfield. Ballage caught 7 balls last week. Before that, Justin Jackson was doing well before he got hurt. So I don't think Eckler really moves the needle on this game. I do think he moves the needle for fantasy teams, but I'm not sure that it's a big difference here.
Yeah, it's not going to change Herbert's ability to read defenses, and I feel like it's going to be a multi-interception game for Herbert. All right, next game. So Dolphins at the Jets. This is the last of the early games. The Dolphins open up -7, and they're still 7. This spreads is off the board in a lot of sports books. Not every sports book, but a lot of them. And I guess there's a question about who the Jets starting quarterback will be, but I really don't understand why that would even matter. So with that in mind, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Dolphins. I'm angry at myself because I had the Jets last week and then changed my pick on Saturday. So I would have been on the right side of that horrible luck we had. But then I would feel bad because I would have been betting on the Jets and gotten lucky. So there was just no good outcome for the Jets Chargers last week. But the analysis for this game against the Dolphins is simple. The Jets are bad. Adam Gase is bad. Brian Flores is good, and the Dolphins play well because of him. I mean, we saw them have a bad week against Denver last week. Tua Tagovailoa struggled for the first time since his first start. So that was a little bit surprising, but I think that Flores will have them ready to bounce back. The fact that he's sticking with Tua as his starter, I think, is a good sign that he knows what he's doing. Like, he's not going to overreact to Tua having a bad game. And just be like, all right, we're done with you now. If it's Fitzpatrick's team again, now it's like, all right, you're playing the Jets. This is a good tune-up game. And then if he struggles, you can start talking about, all right, we're going to go back to Fitzpatrick to try to get in the playoffs. But I just think that if Tua bounces back and has a good outing, the Dolphins should win this one pretty easily. I mean, they have a great defense. And the Jets' strength on offense right now is their receiving core. Rashad Perriman's made a big difference there. He's not going to be able to get open against the secondary because Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, and Noah Igbenoghian they're all just too good. So I like the Dolphins here in a bounce back spot. Brian Flores should have them motivated to play well.
Yeah, so I'll focus on the Jets. I'm right there with you on the Dolphins, but I'll focus on the Jets. Like, their injuries are they're just too much. I feel like they were down their top 2 cornerbacks against the Chargers. Just like the reason why I like the Chargers so much. Felt like Justin Herbert could throw all over them, and he did. And then they just stopped scoring in the fourth quarter because they just I feel like they didn't need to anymore. And it was so aggravating. They were up 12, and they had a 4th and 1 at the 5, and they decided to kick a field goal to go to 15. I'm like thinking, they still have 2 scores. Like, why don't you just go for it and go up 3 scores, and then therefore the Jets don't even have a chance? Like, what's the difference between going from 12 to 15? Like, even if the Jets get 2 touchdowns, like, you don't think you can get a field goal to tie or to get the lead? Like, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, like the Jets are just so banged up. Like on defense, they're missing the top 2 linebackers. Of course, Jamal Adams is long gone, so they have a hole at safety, and their top 2 cornerbacks are out. So it feels like the Dolphins should be able to move the ball pretty well. Tua really struggled last week, but I think he's gonna bounce back. Devontae Parker just has a super easy matchup, so I feel like he should have a great game. And then, you have the Dolphins cornerbacks against the Jets, who, like, the Jets have done well recently, like getting these backdoor covers or covers against the Patriots where they had some touchdowns early in the game and then late in the game against the Chargers. But it's a much tougher matchup for the Jets receivers. So I don't really have faith in Rashad Perriman and Denzel Mimsy getting open against Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. So I think the Dolphins should be able to win this easily. I think this line's low based on recent results. I think this line should be around 10. So I think we're getting some decent value, not great value, but decent enough value. So I definitely like the Dolphins for a couple units.
Yeah, I think that loss to the Broncos is scaring a lot of people off the Dolphins, being like, oh, maybe they're not as good as we thought they were. When in reality, it's just one of those occasional clunkers that teams have. Like, I don't think the Dolphins are great or anything, but I think they're pretty good. And, we see pretty good teams have bad games all the time. So, I think that they're going to do just fine. The Jets are just that bad. I mean, my goodness.
Under Jets team total, I think I'm always for it if they're playing against a good defense. So I would definitely do that. We had some question about like which 2 teams will make the wild card. Andrew asked Titans, Browns, Raiders, Ravens, Dolphins. 2 of those teams won't make the playoffs. Who do you think will not make the playoffs out of these 2? I would say the Browns and probably the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Browns, and I'm leaning towards the Ravens, but I know they have an easier schedule down the stretch. So I could also see the Titans not making it if they just kind of fall apart a little bit, just because I don't think their defense is that good. So I'll go with the Titans and the Browns not making it.
Okay, fair enough. All right. The early afternoon games, the Saints at the Broncos, or late afternoon games. The Saints at the Broncos. It's line open up. Saints -5.5. It's still 5.5 in some places. It's 6 in others. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Saints here. I think this line's too low. Taysom Hill was, as both you and I expected, better than people thought he was going to be, or at least better than the general consensus. Sean Payton, you just shouldn't doubt him. He knows how to run an offense, and he knows what quarterback's going to give him the best chance of winning. And Hill wasn't perfect or anything, but he did pretty well. And near the goal line, he made a big difference with his rushing ability. Him having more mobility than Drew Brees was pretty huge at times. And I think he did a better job of getting the ball to Michael Thomas and jump-starting him than Drew Brees did at any point this year. So I think Hill's going to keep doing that against the Broncos. The Broncos are obviously coming off that big win against Miami, but I still don't think they're a very good team right now. Drew Lock is prone to having just miserable games against bad defenses. Or against good defenses, rather. He didn't have a bad game against the Dolphins, which frankly surprised me. He threw an early pick, and then after that, he was fine for the most part. But I think he's going to have trouble against the Saints team because the Saints take away the run very well. They've allowed the second fewest rushing yards to running backs to only the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so far this season. So if Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay can't get going like they did against the Dolphins, I don't see how Drew Lock's going to keep the Broncos in this one enough. I think the Saints could run up the score here, and just with the way their defense is playing, I think the Saints are looking like a very, very strong team right now. So I'm willing to trust them. My one request to them is they have to get Alvin Kamara involved more. Taysom Hill didn't throw to him at all, which didn't matter in the game plan last week. But against this Broncos team, they're going to have to get the ball in Kamara's hands a little bit more because they've been missing most of their defensive line in recent weeks. So Kamara can take advantage of that. So that's one reason. And then the other reason is they need to have a check down available for Taysom Hill in case some of those shot plays he hit against the Falcons aren't really available for him. They really need to be able to have him get the ball to Kamara. So I wouldn't be surprised if Peyton makes that kind of more of a game plan and says, hey, Taysom, we saw you make downfield plays last week. Let's get some balls to Kamara here to keep him off balance early. But anyway, that's my impassioned plea for let's not lose Alvin Kamara just because Taysom Hill's in the game.
I agree. I expected Kamara's targets to go down because Hill has a better arm at this point than Brees, 41-year-old quarterback. So that doesn't really surprise me at all. But yeah, I think Kamara definitely needs to be more involved offensively. But yeah, I'm right there with you on the Saints. So Drew Lock, he had like a not terrible game. Like he had some good moments in that game, but he was able to feast on the running game. Like the Broncos ran for 166 yards between the two running backs. They're not going to be able to do that against the Saints. Like I don't even think they're going to get half that sum because the Saints are just really good against the run. Kind of like you said. So I think that with Locke having to do more, I think that's going to force him into more turnovers. And also the Broncos they were missing their entire defensive line. They've been missing their entire defensive line the past few weeks. And that hurt them a lot in some of the games, but not against Miami. And the Dolphins weren't able to take advantage of that because they don't have a good offensive line. The Saints do. The Saints have a great offensive line. So they're going to be able to push the Broncos around. And I just think this could be an ugly blowout, kind of like you said. Like maybe the Saints run up the score. So yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I like the Saints for like a medium-sized bet, and I think they should win easily.
Yeah, and I could easily see the Saints running up the score too. I mean, Sean Payton's got to want to shove it in some people's faces. Everyone was like, "Oh, why would you go to Taysom Hill over Jameis Winston?" It's like, well, we're paying Taysom Hill to be the backup. The only reason he wasn't in game was because the game plan designed for Drew Brees better suits Jameis Winston's skill set, and we can still use Hill in the packages where we have him at tight end if we do that. But, with a full week off to prepare for the Falcons, it was definitely the right move. And I'm interested to see if Hill can keep playing pretty well like he did on Sunday. And, he'll improve from the mistakes he made, like that one kind of dead duck he threw that Emmanuel Sanders somehow caught 5 yards behind where his route ended. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, so I like Hill. I like what I saw from him in preseasons. And I don't understand why people were upset with Jameis Winston not playing. It's like this guy threw 30 interceptions last year. Like, let's just not let's not be crazy about like him not playing. Patrick says thanks for the IG shout out on the picks page. Cereal and Music is Patrick's page. It's pretty cool. He reviews like obscure music and cereal, which like I was shocked that there's Jolly Rancher cereal. Like I was so surprised by that. So yeah, check that out. All right. Anyway, next game, 49ers at the Rams. This line open up Rams -7 is still 7. Actually, it's creeping up to 7.5 here. So it might be 7.5 in all sports books soon. So who do you like in this game?
So I don't like this game very much. I'm just going to preface that by saying this. I am on the 49ers for the moment. I think them coming out of the bye and potentially being healthier, I like them in this contest. I think Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach, and he should have a plan of attack ready against the Rams. And I think that Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, and Deebo Samuel could all be back in this game. Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, and Richard Sherman also have a chance to come back. So if the 49ers are getting reinforcements like that, I think they're going to look a lot different than what we saw against the Saints. I also think they're going to be better rested, so that will help. That said, if some of those players or all of those players don't come back, I will absolutely be changing sides because I'm not that gung-ho about this. But I think with the Rams coming off a big Monday night win in a hard-fought game against the Bucs, where, you know, people gave them a chance, but they definitely weren't favored in that one. To get a big win like that, be in the thick of the divisional race now, I think that is going to, they're kind of going to look back at that a little bit. I know there's an element of revenge in this game against the 49ers, but I could see them coming out flat and then at halftime kind of waking up and being like, all right, we got to play better than this. We got to get back on track. We got to do some of the things that made us successful against Tampa Bay. So if we're getting 7.5 points with all those key numbers, I'd like to be on the 49ers if they're getting healthy. But again, I'm not betting on this one until we see if they're getting healthy. And, you know, if they're not as healthy as I want them to be or think they're going to be, I'll probably be on the Rams. But either way, this is a no bet for me. I just tend to be wrong on the Rams this year. So probably going to stick away from that money pit for a little while until I get a better read on them.
No, not a bad idea. So I think you would be right about the motivational edge if the 49ers didn't beat the Rams on national TV earlier in this year. And I think the Rams might remember that. And I think that because of that, they'll be more motivated to beat the Niners, even though Nick Mullins is on their center and George Kittle's not on the field. So I think the Rams, I think they'll be motivated here. And, you know, the big thing for me is the Trent Williams, him being put on the COVID list. You know, we saw how bad the 49ers backup left tackle is. And against the Rams pass rush, I think that could really be problematic for the 49ers. So, you know, if Williams stays on the list and is not able to play, like even if the 49ers get all their receivers back, it won't matter if Nick Mullins has no protection at all. So I think this could get ugly for the 49ers. I think the Rams could win easily. But then again, you know, the Rams are coming off a short week and it's not a great spot for them either. So I don't think I'm going to bet this game. I might eventually, like if the 49ers injury report looks a lot worse than I think it is, I might have a couple units on the Rams, but I'm definitely not going to go big on this game.
Yeah, Trent Williams is definitely the most important player on that list because a backup quarterback's not going to succeed with a backup left tackle in the game most of the time, especially when it's Justin School who's getting schooled out on the field. So, I'm not by no means do I love San Francisco here, but I do see the motivational aspect that you mentioned, but I'm just going to stick to the 49ers for now and probably change the pick later in the week, depending on what the injury report looks like, provided that I am not stuffed full of too much turkey and sleep through all the injury reports.
Let's hope not. All right. The other half of that Monday night game we just saw, the Buccaneers, they're playing at home against the Chiefs. The Chiefs open up -3. It's up to 3.5 in a lot of sports books. If you like the Chiefs, I would say bet them now at -3, -120 at BetUS, because I think this line is going to 3.5 in most places. So with that in mind, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I think I'm on the Chiefs for right now. I'm not a big fan of doubting Tom Brady, but he has a lot of injured offensive linemen right now. I think Ali Marpet will be back for this game, but we saw Donovan Smith got banged up against the Rams, and then AQ Shipley went down late, and those two injuries had a massive impact. Tom Brady hates being pressured from the interior, especially. You could tell he was bothered against the Rams. I had anticipated that being a problem in that game the whole week. It was one of the reasons that I wasn't confident about Brady in fantasy last week. So I think that the Chiefs might be able to do a little bit with Chris Joseph in that one. I'll be a little more confident in the Bucs with Ali Marpet back, but if Donovan Smith or AQ Shipley can't play, then you're looking at a offensive line. And granted, Marpet would push Shipley back to the bench most of the time, but still, you'd be dealing with at least one backup at one of the most important positions on the field in left tackle. So right now, I'm on the Chiefs -3.5. Or -3 if you can get it. I think that's the smart move for one unit, because I do think Patrick Mahomes is going to want to show better in this big game than the Chiefs did against the Raiders, where I think that they did well on offense, but I feel like they should have done better as a team. So I think they'll want to bounce back, and even though Brady will want to bounce back, I'm just not sure this is the matchup that they'll get it done, because something's just not clicking, especially on the defense right now. Like, the offense isn't clicking because Brady's under pressure. We can at least acknowledge that. But the defense had so much trouble against the Rams and their receivers last week, so I'm a little bit cautious to bet the Bucs right now.
Yeah, it feels like Mahomes would be able to light them up anyway. Like it doesn't really matter. Just might as well go. I felt I used to feel this way whenever teams would play the Colts back when Peyton Manning was on top of his game. But my theory was why not just onside kick every single time, because the Colts are going to score on every possession if your defense stinks. If you have a good defense, sure. But yeah, I think that Mahomes is going to be fine. He's going to have a great game against the Buccaneers, even though at some point, the Buccaneers might be able to sack Mahomes because Mitchell Schwartz is out, and they're also missing Kalichi Osemele. So the Chiefs are down a couple of offensive linemen. So while Mahomes should have a great game, I think there are going to be some drives, maybe like one or two, that are disrupted by pressure, I think, by the Buccaneers. So with that in mind, I like Tampa here to bounce back. I think we're getting good value at the +3.5. The advanced spread on this game was -3, so we've gone up to 3.5, which is like a huge thing, because probably the most likely result of this game is the Chiefs winning by 3, kind of like we saw against the Raiders. I think this is good. This could be a close game, and I think Tom Brady is going to play a lot better. First of all, he's coming off a loss, which is great for him, historically. Coming off a loss in his career, he is 45-21 against the spread, which is I guess that's pretty good, right? And second, he's playing against a much worse defense than he saw Monday night. The Chiefs just let Derek Carr look like Joe Montana, so I think Tom Brady is going to have a great game. And third, I think, with Ali Marpet coming back, that's enormous. And Donovan Smith, he did play at the end of the game. He wasn't good. He was banged up, but having some time off, a few days off, should be might be able to let him come back and play closer to 100%. So with all that in mind, it just seems like the Buccaneers have a lot going for them in this game. And I think the most likely results of this game, as I said, Chiefs winning by 3, and then also Tampa winning by 3. So if you get the +3.5, you get both. I like the Buccaneers here. I think there's going to be too much of an overreaction to the Buccaneers losing. So I definitely I'm going to be on Tampa, maybe for a big play.
Yeah, I don't dislike your side here. It's just more of I'm buying into the Chiefs right now, and as Andrews hit on, I probably need to get some sleep. Given that I called Chris Jones Chris Joseph and DeAndre Hopkins Dustin Hopkins. I will defend myself by saying it is Thanksgiving week, so I have a little bit of extra work crammed into the early portion of my week, especially with Washington playing on Thursday. That means I have to get a whole game week of content into 3 days. So if you're wondering why I'm a little bit crazy today, that's probably why. But anyway, yeah, the Bucs I don't think are a bad pick, and I don't love the number for Kansas City. That's why I'm on just for one unit at most. But I just think right now, I I'm just more confident in what Kansas City is doing. And I'm sure I'll regret that because doubting Tom Brady is never a good thing. But I just think Patrick Mahomes is going to find a way to tear apart that defense again.
Yeah, more sleep is good. I didn't have enough sleep either. I don't know if you remember watching that the Raiders Chiefs game, but like they cut away to a commercial showing a wedding, like two people were getting married, and like Al Michaels said something like, "Here's a wedding in Vegas, one of many you'll see," or something like that.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So that night, I had a dream that I knew these people, and I was pissed off that they didn't invite me to their wedding.
See, that's the best is when you've worked like the full, like, oh man, it was like a 13 to 15 hour day of the NFL Sunday, and then you have some weird dream about something that happened in the game, and you're like, wow, why am I thinking about that right now? But I remember seeing that and being like, glad these people just let this camera crew into their wedding for some reason.
That's true. Yeah, it's like NBC's just there, like, hey, let's take a shot of you for a promo. Yeah, I woke up angry, and then I was like, wait, I have no reason to be angry. So anyway. All right. The Sunday night game, Bears at the Packers. There's no line on this game because we don't know who Chicago's quarterback is going to be. Could be Nick Foles, who's injured. It could be Mitch Trubisky, who's injured. And if neither of those guys can play, it'll be Tyler Bray. So who do you like in this game?
Well, I'm on the Packers for sure. I was already tired of the Bears before the bye. They've burned me one too many times since I trusted them against the Bucs. That was the only time they actually paid off, I think. And Aaron Rodgers is coming off a very close, hard-fought loss to the Colts. He's going to be mad about how that one ended, too, because Marquez Valdez-Scantling fumbled the ball in field goal range, basically, for Rodrigo Blankenship. So Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be like, oh, we could have driven the length of the field and won that game because they had the Colts on the ropes at the end, and they blew a big lead. So there's just so much motivation for Aaron Rodgers, especially since this game, if the Packers win it, they basically lock up the NFC North unless they suffer a catastrophic failure down the stretch where they allow the Bears or Vikings to make up 3 or 4 games. And I don't see that happening. And, if we're talking about Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky, or Tyler Bray, who really cares? Nick Foles hasn't done anything with that offense. Mitch Trubisky hasn't done anything with that offense. Tyler Bray has stuck around in the league. I give him credit for that. But we've never really seen him play that much outside of the preseason. So if he couldn't beat Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles with how they're playing already, then I'm not willing to trust Tyler Bray. So pretty much at any number, I'll be on the Packers. It's just a matter of the unit count. And I don't really think that the Bears are going to score that much at all because I think the Packers are going to bring their A game in all aspects here.
Yeah, this is going to be a blowout. Aaron Rodgers off a loss. He's 32-15 against the spread in his career, which is pretty good too. The Bears are terrible. When they were 5-1, I thought they were the most overrated team in the NFL, and now they're 5-5. And yet I still think they're overrated because, first of all, they have these quarterback injuries. Nick Foles and Trubisky, if either plays, whoever that is may not be 100%. And if it's Tyler Bray, forget about it. He's awful. Their offensive line is also banged up. They have a lot of issues there. So, along with their injured quarterback, they're going to have backup linemen protecting that injured quarterback or a terrible quarterback in Bray's case. And then also, they're 5-5 now. But if you remember earlier in the year, at the beginning of the year, when they build up that 5-1 record, they had some close wins, some very close wins they easily could have lost. Against the Lions, in week 1, they had a crazy comeback. Against the Giants, they were one pass away from losing in a game where Barkley got injured. Against the Falcons, they had to have a crazy comeback, and Julio Jones didn't even play in that game. So if they had lost all 3 of those games and they're 2-8 right now, this spread would be a lot larger than what it's going to be. I suspect it's going to be around 8.5. But if they're 2-8, this line would be 13.5, which is kind of where it should be, I think. So yeah, we don't know what the line is going to be on this game. If it's around what I think it's going to be, this might be my biggest pick of the week. I just think the Packers are just going to slaughter the Bears. Kind of like you said, they're going to be focused for this game because they want to put the division away, and Chicago is the closest team to them. So yeah, this is I don't see how the Bears are going to keep this game close.
Yeah, and even if you're confident in their defense and you're like, all right, they're going to limit Aaron Rodgers. The Colts limited Aaron Rodgers last week, and he scored, 28 points? The Bears are going to score 10 maybe. they're not guaranteed to get to 14 points at any time. So yeah, I think the Packers are the no-brainer. They might be one of my biggest picks of the week too.
Okay, the Fantasy Football Show. Follow him. Or subscribe to him actually on YouTube. He says your life is on the line. One to bounce back to 2019 form: Lamar or Drake. Pick one.
Ooh, man, that's tough. I think I would probably go with Drake just because I feel like if teams adjusted too hard to Kyler Murray running on the goal line, for example, like he's done that a ton this year. I think he has 5 rushing touchdowns, and like most of them are from the 1 yard line. And that might just be in the last like 8 weeks or so. If Drake got some of those goal line carries and got in the end zone, then you're talking like, okay, he's getting some touchdowns now. That makes a huge difference. So I think Drake could bounce back to that form just by scoring a little extra. And I think we've seen at least some flashes of, better running ability against weaker defenses. With Lamar, as the season's gone along, we've kind of seen, I don't want to say steady regression, but more of a plateau and worse play with his offensive line out. So I think until his line is healthier, I think he's going to be kind of stuck in neutral. Whereas Drake, I think, could bounce back if he can get healthy and get more opportunities on the goal line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you were to tell me Ronnie Stanley would be back in a few weeks, I'd be like, okay, maybe Jackson has a strong finish. And like, if Stanley were to come back in week 14, I could be like Jackson might win someone fantasy playoff. But Stanley's not coming back. The Ravens have injuries in the offensive line, and Jackson's just not himself. He doesn't have the time in the pocket to find Marquise Brown downfield. So yeah, like Drake is getting opportunities, and I think he could, like you said, he could score some touchdowns. So I think definitely Drake. All right, the Monday night game. So the Seahawks are playing at the Eagles. This line opened up. Seahawks -3.5. It's up to 5. Actually 5.5 in some places. So who do you like in this game?
I still like the Seahawks, even with that line movement. You and I both had some concerns last week about if Russell Wilson was dealing with an injury or if he just didn't have his head in the game or if something was wrong. They kind of quelled those concerns with a big win over the Cardinals. I really need sleep, man. This is a big time theme this week. But yeah, so they beat the Cardinals in a pretty impressive showing, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They made some strides there. So I think that they are going to have a good chance to take down the Eagles. The Eagles just can't block. They can't throw downfield. Carson Wentz leads the NFL in interceptions with 14, and he has been sacked 40 times, which is also the most in the NFL. I have uttered those same statistics with different numbers for the past 3 weeks consecutively. It doesn't seem like those trends are going to change anytime soon. Wentz just keeps making big mistakes. And I think the Seahawks now are ready to take advantage of that. Their pass rush was much better. Carlos Dunlap looked really good against the Cardinals, and their secondary looks really good, even without their top 2 cornerbacks. If they can get Shaq Griffin or Quentin Dunbar back, or both, I think we're talking about not a big-time blowout by the Seahawks. I think it'll be hard to win on Philly or in Philly on the road. But I still think they could win this game by double digits. We just haven't seen the Eagles be able to do anything consistently on offense, and their defense is porous in the back end. So I'll take the Seahawks for a couple units here.
Yeah, me too. The Eagles are just a mess. I thought they're going to, maybe not win against Cleveland, but I thought they're going to keep the game close. And I guess they did for a while. And then Carson Wentz just kept committing turnover after turnover. He was just a mess. He gave the Browns 9 points, and the Browns scored 10 points. Like it's just like he just lost the game by himself. And I really don't see any signs of him turning around. Like he's just been miserable the whole year. He looks like he's never played football before. Sometimes, like he just like doesn't know what he's looking at downfield, and he just throws randomly. It feels like I don't understand what's happened to him. He used to be an MVP candidate quarterback, and even last year he played well. He willed the team into the playoffs, even though they're missing so many players. I don't know if he's dealing with some injury that no one knows about, or if he's just kind of lost his passion for the game. So I think if I were the Eagles at this point, I think I would go with Jalen Hurts and see what he has. I mean, they spent a 2nd round pick on him. So it's not like he's some scrub, or at least they think he's, they don't think he's a scrub. So I really don't understand like the point of playing Wentz anymore at this stage. Like at least give him a break, I think that could work out for him, and it wouldn't be unprecedented. I mean, Drew Brees, back when he was with the Chargers, he had a great 2002. And then 2003, he struggled, and the Chargers benched him for a few games in favor of Doug Flutie. And then Brees came back, and he played really well the next year. So, like, a few games off might be good for Wentz to kind of like sit back and kind of figure things out. So I think that's what I would do if I were the Eagles. As for this game, I think the Seahawks are going to win this pretty easily. Especially like you were saying, if they get at least one of their cornerbacks back, like that'll make their secondary a lot better. I mean, either way, like they're going to find some ways to pick off Wentz. Like Wentz is throwing interceptions against bad teams. He did that against the Giants. So like, how is he going to beat the Seahawks? Russell Wilson, like we weren't sure about him last week, but yeah, he looks like he's bounced back from whatever was bothering him. I think he's going to be able to beat the Eagles easily. And, late in the year, you want to bet on Wilson. Week 11 or later in his career, Russell Wilson is 33-18 against the spread. So pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty good. I think if the Eagles weren't in the divisional race right now, I think you'd see some Jalen Hurts for sure. I think at this point, they're probably just trying to wait it out and be like, hey, we might still backdoor our way into the playoffs if we can win some of these games. But if Carson Wentz keeps playing like this, they're not going to win. And then we'll see Jalen Hurts down the stretch. And I think Wentz can absolutely bounce back. He's just had a terrible year. I think his confidence is gone because he's been under pressure so much. And, I think he can be a good quarterback again for the Eagles, but they're going to have to invest in some better protection for him and some, just get healthy too. But if it ever got to the point where the franchise was like, all right, Jalen Hurts played the last 3 games and he looked great, we're going to roll with him, there would be a trade market for Carson Wentz. And I would think the Colts would be in on that, depending on what Phillip Rivers does after this season, because reuniting Wentz with Frank Reich behind a great offensive line could pay dividends. So just throwing that out there to the wind. I have no idea if that's even remotely possible, but just something to chew on.
Yeah, if they didn't have a viable backup, I'd be like, yeah, you have to go with Wentz. I mean, like you said, they're in the wild card race, or they're in the divisional race. So I guess if they didn't have a good backup, it would make sense to stay with Wentz. But they spent a second round pick on a backup quarterback, and why would they do that if they're not going to try something? Wentz isn't working for them right now, and I wouldn't give up on him. I think the Colts trading for him would be great for them. But right now he seems lost, and I think he needs a week or two off. It may not work out, but what they're doing now isn't working anyway. So I think they have to try something, but that's just me.
Yeah, and for those keeping score at home, that is the second time I've suggested a quarterback be traded to the Colts this year on the podcast. We're going to hopefully by the offseason get through all 30 of the teams that could possibly trade with them.
We'll have a long list at one point in one of the episodes. All right, Survivor. Minnesota did not work out last week. Actually, all the options we were considering last week that we had available did not work out. Tampa was the other one, I believe, and Tampa lost to the Rams. And I was saying, if we had the Ravens available, I would take them, and they lost to the Titans. So it was one of those weeks where there were a lot of upsets. Dolphins were another one, and they lost. So this week, if we were still alive, and now we have 2 losses, so I can't really complain about the Colts too much in week 1. I think I was looking at what was I looking at? Obviously, if you have the Packers available, you want to take them. That's the no-brainer. But right now, I think considering all the teams I have chosen already, I think I would go with the Bills. I think against Justin Herbert, playing against a great defensive-minded coach against a great defense, and the Bills having extra time to prepare, I think the Bills are the best choice given what we have available. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see the Bills. I like Justin Herbert too much to fade him like that, but that's because he's on my fantasy team, so I'm inherently biased. So I'll fade the worst starting quarterback in the NFL and go with the Giants over Ryan Finley's Bengals. I truly do not imagine a scenario where Ryan Finley helps the Bengals do anything on offense. I think they could score 3 points, possibly fewer. So that's a terrible, terrible prediction because the odds of that happening are low, but I still think it's possible. So I would take the Giants. I think that they have a very good chance of winning this week, and I don't think you can really use them in many other scenarios.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Giants, and I just couldn't quite pull the trigger on a 3-7 team on the road. But I think that you might be right about that. They were close though in consideration. If you want to save the Giant, you can save, quote unquote, save the Giants for week 17 when they play Dallas at home, and I think that could be a decent option. I think the Giants should be able to win that game. But yeah, I wouldn't blame you at all for taking the Giants. So yeah, I would go with the Bills, but it like I said, it was super close for me. I really don't see a teaser I like this week at this moment, but just because there are a lot of lines off the board. Like if the Packers are -8.5, I would definitely throw them in the teaser at -2.5. Looking also at the Patriots, getting them up to 8.5. Like I don't like I said, I was not confident at all in that game. But I think they'll stay close to Arizona, like relatively close. So if you're going to give me +8.5 with them and then -2.5 with the Packers, I think I would like that teaser.
Yeah, I think I would like that one for sure. I would also consider the Bucks moving them from 3.5 to 9.5 and going with the Patriots there. I'm on the Chiefs in that game though, so basically that's my way of saying like I think the Chiefs are going to win somewhere between 4 and 8 points. So I think the Bucks would be a good choice there.
Yeah, someone's asking about Miami. This is for Survivor. We already picked Miami, but if you have Miami available, I think they're a great choice against the Jets. The Jets are not going to beat the Dolphins, I don't think. So yeah, that's another option. So that is it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow all of my work, or I'll tweet out most of my work on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I tweet picks every week. Be nice to me when I'm wrong. Don't tell me that it's rough all the time. I know usually if we lose, I know that we lost. But yeah, you could ask me questions there. I tweet out fantasy stuff. I'll tweet out a ton of Washington football team stuff this week too, because it's Thanksgiving week. And for I think the third time in 5 years, we're playing the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. And it's like the fourth Thanksgiving game in 5 years. So I'm very used to this like very compact Thanksgiving week schedule. So I'll have a bunch of stuff for that there. If you want to know more about that, you can check out Rigo's Rag. You can check out sportingnews.com/fantasy for my fantasy stuff. And yeah, let's just talk some football. It's been a good season so far, and I hope this week treats us better with the picks.
Yeah, hope we have better luck this time. Please hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. I even wrote that out, so please hit subscribe even more, or hit the like button, comment, or share this with someone. It would mean a lot. Like I said before, closing in on 2,000 subscribers, so it's pretty cool. I'm at wallstreetfootball.com. Updated picks throughout the weeks, Thursday thoughts, Saturday notes, and then final thoughts Sunday morning. Updated for the injury reports, and Saturday is super important because the final injury report on Friday. Updated 2021 NFL mock draft coming tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning. So I'm going to write that up tonight and see how that goes. Plus tons of content from Charlie. He's posting some great draft content already. And the college football season is getting close to the end. So, as we get closer, we're going to have even more draft content. We're going to have more information from Charlie's sources. So check that out as well. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you then.